Former prisoners of Reddit, what is something that no one seems to know about prison life? 1. It's really boring. Pick a room in your house. Remove everything from it, including windows, except a bed, and imagine having to be there for even just 7 straight days. You can pretend a TV is in there too, but imagine that you can't pick the channel and it only ever shows pure, utter crap. 2. You're treated extremely poorly by corrections officers. I don't necessarily mean physical abuse, though that sometimes happens, but you're not treated like a person. You're treated like a dog with owners who don't actually want it. 3. Solitary confinement, after a while, seems like psychological torture, especially when you don't know how long you'll be there. 4. Not a single thing seems to be done to rehabilitate people. You're just locked in a cage for a while as punishment. My experience wasn't actually bad at all. I ended up being really fortunate and really needed the wake-up call, but I had never really considered what being locked up would be like before that. It's not fun. At the same time, though, I can understand why some people would be back several times if you were actually friends with some of the other inmates, and some of them certainly knew one another. It's basically just hanging out all day. If you roll in those types of circles already, it doesn't seem like much of a deterrent. I wasn't in a hardcore facility, though. I'm quite positive there are infinitely harder places to do time. You miss things that you don't think about on a day-to-day basis. Things that you take for granted. 27 months in military and US federal prisons, and the 2 things I looked forward to the most was turning a light switch on and off and walking barefoot on carpet. Female ex-prisoner here. How freaking sad and isolating it is. One of my cellmates was told her husband died a few weeks before I paroled. She was in for a probation violation. She didn't really have anyone but her husband, and when they asked her if she wanted to make any phone calls, she broke down. There was no one left. I remember us all sitting with her trying to be there for her. It was so sudden and so tragic. I found out I was pregnant while in prison and later gave birth there as well. All family was over 12 hours away. I had family that was allowed to be present during labor, but that just wasn't an option because of the distance. I spent 2 days with my daughter and then received a picture once I went back to prison. No posting on Facebook, no phone calls, nothing pretty much. Very lonely. It's been 5 years since the day I was arrested and then later incarcerated. I have a beautiful family. My daughter has been with me since I got out, and I am currently an engineering student. Life is so fulfilling. There are not many days I reflect upon this time, but I figured I would throw my 2 cents in. I spent a short amount of time in a young offenders institution UK when I was 20. Nobody told me everyone showers with their boxer shorts on. Day 1 I walk into the showers naked and was faced with 10 very confused young men wondering why the new guy had his pecker out. Day 1. Unknowingly asserted prison dominance today. Getting caught masturbating sucks. I got caught masturbating in jail 7 or 8 times. It really sucks. So this is the guy on the top bunk. I don't know about these days, but back when I was in prison, it was dull. We watched TV, chat, eat, sleep, play cards. Too much time on our hands. Even the guards would join us for card games or to watch TV with us. Bunking with a stupid mother sucker that jerks off at least 3 times a night and the whole goddamn bunk rattles the whole time. If you can't beat him, join him. I was a prison guard and I was always surprised by the level of power and wealth in prison. Outside, an important, powerful man has lots of money, expensive drugs and women. While there are drugs in prison, they are rare. So a powerful, wealthy inmate has an abundance of little Debbie cakes, Twinkies and porno mags. I'm just picturing Bernie Madoff sitting on his bunk, eating Nuttabers, laughing merrily and clapping his hands while watching the other inmates perform a puppet show, each one trying so hard to win his approval for an oatmeal cream pie. The spreads. Sometimes I'll get a sudden craving for ramen and then while I'm eating it I remember why I hated prison so much. Frick ramen spreads. That we can make full meals out of ramen and various store kitchen ingredients. Ramen pizza, ramen burritos, ramen sandwiches, you name it. Let's hear a recipe, just in case. That it's possible to go years without a hug, or any physical contact for that matter. It wears on your psyche. So it's like being a fat kid in high school with parents that don't love him and no internet connection. The worst part about it is how painfully boring it is. My English professor told a story a few weeks ago about how his first teaching job was at a prison. He said it was the only job he's ever had where the students asked for more homework. I think he said he only taught there on Tuesdays, and he'd assign homework to last them the week, and they'd be done with it by Thursday. If you look at the guards as your butler, it makes life more enjoyable in there. Call them Jeeves. I mean, they get your mail, bring you your meals. Also, the tabletop RPG games can be very good. 99.9% of the sex is consensual. More like consensual. How much stuff changes on the outside? Like what happened to Legos, man? They used to be so simple. There was a guy at my facility who was locked up when the Doritos Locos came out. He'd talk about them constantly and ask every officer if he's tried them. I want to assume when he got released his ride brought some. Served 30 months in Florida at age 18. Food was terrible. Boredom is mind-numbing. The feeling that the world is leaving you behind is quite painful. Perhaps the worst of it though is the stigma associated with being a convicted felon. I have been turned down twice for jobs in the last month I am capable of excelling at specifically because felony convictions. Former Space Coast area machinist now living in oil country Louisiana. Problem is, I am totally honest with them and the convictions are 25 years old. I work at a fiberglass factory, where most of the workers are felons. It's really surprising to see just how many there are. You think you know what boredom is? No, you don't unless you have been locked up. I was so bored I tried to go asleep at 4 PM just to make day go past faster. 99% of inmates are incredibly friendly to each other. There is a little bit of us prisoners versus them custodial staff. Other staff were mostly okay mentality. Your first night in, someone will make sure you are fed and make sure you have everything you need until you can get your first canteen. The free soap you are given sucks and dries your skin. The most basic thing anyone can give you is a bar of real soap and a razor, but it's the most appreciated. The thing is, the prison discourages this behavior. You are not supposed to possess anything you didn't pay for. They will tell you all gifts come with strings attached, which of course is rarely true. The only string is you pay it forward when you're settled in. I once got in trouble for lending someone my radio, even though I had 2 of them. They create all these rules and lies to try and get the inmates to feel isolated against each other, but it only reinforces the bind between them, because the only thing you all have in common is the man is trying to put you down. It's a lot like high school. If you were forced into the high school by armed men in uniforms, told you couldn't leave until X time has passed, and they shut the door behind you. Think of all the awful people you knew in high school. Buttholes, jocks, bullies, dongheads, thugs, etc. They're all there, but grown up and locked in with you. The same cliques, the same maturity levels, but everyone's an adult and locked in a building with you. Actually, this is a very accurate description. I remember thinking this a few times on the inside. Prisoners get fat BC. The food is pure processed crapola. My mom served 2 years. She said that was really hard to control her weight because everything was cooked in lard. They had some form of cake every meal. Most of the food was crap, so they would buy junk food from the commissary because it at least tastes good. That there's as many drugs and as much getting fricked up as there is on the street. I just got out of the Cuyahoga County Jail for 2 months on Wednesday. While it's not a prison, it definitely felt like it. I was one of the few white people on my pod. I was in GP until I put in a kite to be a trustee. Once I was trustee, they put me in the kitchen where I worked 70 hours a week. They told me and the other new trustees before we were transferred to the trustee pod that we could eat however much we want. We threw away pounds and pounds of food, while GP is eating on 30 cents a day. The compassion required to live in prison is immense. Both guards, authorities and other inmates are in a constant state of angst, and with few outlets for their feelings of get me the frick outta here, they project their rage in a wide array of ways. Some channel it into exercise, others into mischief, others into music. The level of innovation is astounding. Take for example, my buddy Big Tuna, a large friendly hick dude who was in for selling pot. He emptied a container, covered the top with a hairnet, fastened it with elastics and pushed cheese through it as a sort of makeshift grater. He spread the cheese flavored product in between tortillas with some vegetables and pepperoni. He borrowed the iron and proceeded to grill these bad boys, wrap them nicely in paper towel and sell them for stamps. Brilliantly entrepreneurial. I did time in state and federal prison. Some of the most talented, hardworking, and inspiring people I've ever met were in prison, some for decades. One's ability to navigate the waters of prison life ultimately boiled down to attitude. I was humbled by the fact that some of the most positive people I've ever met were in prison and some of the whiniest are out in society sharing their first world problems on social media as if it's a necessary public service. Happy to do an AMA if anyone wants to know more about prison life, the opportunity to make it a positive experience, or otherwise. Gruel sandwiches. Gruel omelets. Nothing but gruel. Plus, you can eat your own hair. The noise. Everything is concrete and steel so everything echoes. And every black dude is the next big rapper or R&B hitmaker and they practice at the top of their lungs with 10 hype men. Dominoes being slammed on metal tables almost constantly is enough to send even the sanest person insane. The noise is brutal. The smell of farts, ramen noodles, instant coffee and cocoa butter all the time. Shouldn't touch any handrail because it probably has semen on it. And I think staff was born in prison because everyone has it. Way more just can't think of it. Also, half the guards that worked there probably belonged in there. I'm from a third world country. Spent a few nights in a cell built for 6 with 25 plus other inmates. Before going in, aside from the usual stuff, they also take away whatever you can use to commit suicide, and when I got there I realized why. Being in jail absolutely devastates your spirits. Earlier I was in bed with one of, if not the hottest girl in campus. I had more money than I need. A loving family, friends. Life was awesome. A few hours later I was sleeping on the floor with all the other inmates who didn't sleep in the bunk beds. The bunk beds built for 6 has about 16 guys on it. The guy beside me, he was called Rambo. He robbed a small bus, we call them jeepney, with another dude. Cops had a shootout with him. He was shot 5 times. His partner was killed. He hid in the bushes which the cops set on fire. He got on another jeepney which took him to a public hospital where he was arrested. He was gonna sleep on a piece of cardboard which fit about half his 5 feet 5 frame. When he saw I got nothing to sleep on but the cold dirty floor, he gave me half his cardboard piece. I never felt so sorry for myself. I realized I threw away everything my parents had worked hard for. I realized how easy it was to lose everything that made you who you are. Yet despite that, dude beside me, who was a career criminal convicted felon armed robber, gave a complete stranger, me, half of everything he had. The bathroom was also the kitchen, so while you're taking a dump, guy on your left is making breakfast while you get wet from the guy showering on your right. Our government doesn't really have a budget for food for the inmates, so they ask you for $4 US for food for the week. Not everyone can come up with the $4, of course. On my second night, 2 kids aged 9 and 10 are added to the mix. They're not supposed to be there, but it's a Saturday so the social welfare department is closed. The 10-year-old kid is a trained boxer. His dad rode the bike while he ran 10 miles, he told us. When he slows down his dad would beat him with a stick. He had won several bouts and he earns $7 when he wins, which his dad pockets. The 2 kids had a third friend. They got into a fight the way young boys do. He hit his buddy and the kid fell to the floor. There was a pool of blood. He never got up again. If I could ask, if you become friends in jail, do you usually hang out after you are free? You have been visited by the magical duck. You don't have to do anything. He will simply give you a good day today. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video, or don't. Either way, have a great day, you magnificent people.